This is EntreEd Talk, the podcast for entrepreneurial educators by entrepreneurial educators. We are your hosts, Toi Hirschman and
Amber Ravenscroft. This podcast is created by the National Consortium for Entrepreneurship Education, or EntreEd for short.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of EntreEd Talk. We are super excited to be here with Dr. Rebecca Corbin, who we will fondly call Becky throughout the podcast because she's one of our very good friends. Dr. Corbin is the president and CEO of the National Association for Community College Entrepreneurship, or NACCE, a leading nonprofit membership organization dedicated to increasing entrepreneurship offerings and thinking at over 300 community colleges across the country. She has forged several new partnerships with national foundations to advance STEM education, ecosystem mapping, and intellectual property curriculum knowledge in community colleges across the United States. Prior to NACCE, Becky served as Vice President of Institutional Advancement and Executive Director of the BCC Foundation at Burlington County College. With her leadership, a new workforce development initiative at BCC was successfully launched. Becky has also oversaw institutional advancement for the Foundation for New Jersey Public Broadcasting. Hi, Becky.
Hi, Amber. Hi, Toi.
We're so excited that you're here with us today. Everyone listening, we've been trying to get Becky on our podcast for many months, many moons now, and she is so busy, and we're excited to hear a little bit about the projects that she has been kickstarting across the country. But before we get into all that good stuff, we always like to ask our first question is, how did you get to where you are today? What was your trajectory? What was your story?
Great. Well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me. I love working with you guys, and I love talking with you, and I love thinking about entrepreneurship. So my journey into entrepreneurship education is more of an accidental one. Actually, about 13 years ago now, my family and I moved to New Jersey from North Carolina, and I was a young mom and I didn't have a lot of time to work, but I missed working. So I actually found an entrepreneurship center on the campus of Rowan University and learned about this cool concept of entrepreneurship. So I accessed community resources and I started a small business, a small consulting business, which allowed me to work with nonprofits and help them raise money and develop their boards, and at the same time take care of my young family. So my kind of career progressed on in different ways. I worked for our public television station raising money, and accidentally, again, fell into working with community colleges, which I completely fell in love with. I love the open access mission. And it wasn't until working within the community college system for several years, as I started to work on my doctorate, that I really started to see the intersection of entrepreneurship, workforce development, and philanthropy as really being kind of a magic combination for really leveraging and accessing change. So that was really the beginning of my journey, the last probably 14 years or so.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. We met, actually, all three of us, I think, we all met at the same time about 4 years ago now, when we were partnering on a grant that we received. We've talked about it in other podcasts, but just even in that short amount of time, we've watched NACCE grow so much under your leadership, both membership-wise and impact-wise, and all of the cool projects that you're involved with. And I'd really be interested, and I know our listeners would be interested in having you share how you've really just built this organization to a juggernaut in such a short amount of time.
Thank you. And again, it's only by networking innovative and like-minded people and organizations that kind of growth is even possible. However, to give you a snapshot, when I joined NACCE, the annual budget was about $1.2 million. About 25% of it came from membership dues, and the rest of it really came from one funder. And what I experienced about a year into my job is it became crystal clear that one funder was going away. And I was literally scared to death because I saw the potential of this organization, but I also saw the timeline, and I was looking at sort of a funding gap of about $400,000 to close quickly. And, that's the kind of, I think, experience that brings one to their knees, literally, because you really have to dig deep and say, there's no guarantee this is even going to work out. But long story short, I think by making connections with really like-minded and aligned organizations such as Adventure and EntreEd and many, many others, what I found is that you could really turn sort of liabilities and problems into challenges. So over the last 5 years, our organizational budget this year is a little less than $5 million. So, more than quadrupled what we've been able to do. And of that $5 million, we give several million dollars away. We give it back to our members. So we've kind of flipped the model in terms of just being a receiver of membership dues. We actually are a contributor, not only of significant funding, but also the developer of new products and services. Many of them we've developed, actually the three of us, utilizing ecosystem mapping and communities of practice, things I knew nothing about until I finished my doctorate. So that's another lesson. Once you finish your highest degree of education, you're not done learning ever. And that's kind of the recipe. So as I look to the future of NACCE's growth, I think one of the things that I'm mindful of is really maintaining that culture of innovation, of servant leadership, which is very, very important to me. That's sort of the essence of what I gravitate toward. But it's also being mindful that, substantial growth and what we're trying to do right now in scaling NACCE, we're looking in 2020 at, again, doubling our budget or more. So as we work through our numbers, we know next year our budget will probably be in a $10 to $12 million range. And we have to make some different kinds of decisions. We have to invest in hiring more senior staff. We're right now searching for an aligned institutional partner. We have a couple of great prospects, but again, it brings you to your knees because you don't know what the future is. But what I did a couple of months ago after consulting with my wonderful board that I have, by the way, which are all community college leaders, presidents around the country, is decide to get a business coach because I know a lot of things. I know how to raise money on public television. I know how to teach. I know how to do other things, but I don't really know how to scale an organization, but there are people that do. And so I think an entrepreneur needs to understand, whether you're an educator or a business builder, well, what don't you know and how can you get that knowledge? And that's what I've been working with this business coach on, is really saying, how can we make sure that we maintain the culture, expand the impact and services, and really allow NACCE to grow and to thrive, because it's really a member-serving member, institutionally connected organization.
I love that. I feel like there's so much to unpack just in those words of wisdom. But one of the things that you mentioned where you kind of had to flip the model and you now give a lot of your funds straight back to the community colleges, it makes me think of Clayton Christensen's idea of disruptive innovation and how when you're approached with problems, you have to change the model, not just the products. And I think that NACCE is a perfect example of how you've approached fundraising and, sustainability from flipping that model. So I think that that's really impactful and says a lot about your leadership in NACCE.
I was going to say, Amber, I think that's an excellent point that you make. And I think too, when we're at times where we're really stretched, like way outside of our comfort zone and doing things that are just contrary to anything we've ever done, there's that tendency to be a turtle and like pull back into your shell where it's safe. But really you have to do the opposite, which means literally sticking your neck out of your shell and, really kind of putting yourself out there and saying, do I have the capacity to do this? And if I don't, I need to start surrounding myself with people that do, because even in times where we were struggling, saving every penny. I used to go to bed at night and I knew what my payroll was every month. And I'd literally walk through it in my head and think, okay, so I know we have X number of dollars coming in from membership dues. I have this from grants. And I have this from, just so I knew I didn't have to lay anybody off. And what I still continue to do is travel and meet with people, but I figured out a different way to do it. I made some really good friends like you guys and others around the country. And if we were going somewhere and we had to go to New York City where it was a very expensive hotel, I even sometimes, Nancy Lachis is a good friend of mine through Direct Selling Educational Foundation. She and I would room together and it was fun. It brought me back to my college days, but the way of saving money, but we could still be there. And those are actually, when I look back, the times that I would cherish because everything was important. And even now that we're in a much healthier financial position, I don't want to scrimp and save, but I'll remember that sometimes whether you're starting a business or you're looking for a job, you need to invest in that expensive suit sometimes so that you show up. You need to buy an airplane ticket or buy a ticket to a gala or do something which feels like, oh my gosh, I don't have $50. Well, you do have $50, and that's the kind of a mindset which, Amber, you and I have talked about this and Toi as well, about entrepreneurial mindset. It can't be scarcity based. It has to be the willingness to take risks and make small bets.
I love that. I'm going to get a shirt made that says like, get rid of the turtle tendency. I'm going to start that.
No more turtles.
Oh, don't be a turtle. That'll be our forum t-shirts, Toi. We always talk about making a t-shirt company around pitching. Turtle tendencies. Get rid of it.
I'm still waiting for my t-shirt, Amber. You haven't.
I need to launch that business. I got to get rid of my turtle tendencies.
Oh, that's so awesome. Becky, this is great insights. It's hard when you're dealing with the unknown and you're pushing forward as a leader. You have to push forward regardless of how, scared you might feel. And for you, it's worked out beautifully. So I hope that you continue to do that and continue to grow. And by the way, Becky is a fantastic roommate. I had the pleasure not too long ago.
We did have a really good time, Toi.
I don't think that was a scrimping and saving situation. That was just the nature of where we were going. But it was so nice to get to know you a little bit better. It was
Toi too. Like the journey is, I think that's a piece of it too. Is it is so much more enjoyable because you're put in these situations constantly. The trip you were speaking about, you and I were at Hocking College in the middle of Southern Ohio, and I was driving at night, and I turned off the road, and I'm on this gravel road, and I'm calling you, and you and I didn't even really know each other that well. You're trying to navigate me, and there are no street lights. And I'm thinking, I have no idea where I am. And I'm talking to this person. And then lo and behold, we end up in this 1920s bed and breakfast place, which was so cool. And I think that's what you remember. It could have been like a really awful place with spiders. And in retrospect, that would have been fun too. Not as much fun, but I think it's just being open and embracing the people along the way that are part of the journey.
Yeah, that was a really great experience. And we've had some, like I know Amber and I have had our fair share of really interesting travel experience. Yep. But it's always good, at the end of the day, it's always like, wow, that was such a cool thing. And I learned so much from it. And so tell us, I know that tell us, we know a little bit about what you're working on, but tell our listeners, a little bit about the big projects that you have going on. We know about Verizon and Makeshift and anything else that you'd want to highlight, because you've got some really cool things, really impactful things happening right now.
Yeah, so a couple of them, and we've spoken about this before, is a couple of years ago, we collaborated to begin the project to publish a book through Stylus Publication. And that book finally came to fruition and being published in February of this year. The title of it is Community Colleges as Incubators of Innovation, Unleashing Entrepreneurial Opportunities for Communities and Students. And that was really an effort underway to not only have a book that was sort of reader friendly, that sort of brought case studies to life with guiding principles, but also sort of captured the heart of the Presidents for Entrepreneurship Pledge, which I know we'll probably talk about later. So that was a big milestone project that we launched at the beginning of the year, and we've tried to build a lot of our other programming around it. We have a course that's coming online that's being developed by one of our members, Sam Steidel, who I think was a past interviewee on your show, and she's just done a phenomenal job. I looked at the course with her yesterday, and it blew me away how she's captured things through a new platform and through video. And I think a lot of the things that are the ways that we really want to support and encourage our faculty to teach is more in a sort of a flipped classroom, multimedia, digital format. So some of the exciting projects that we have coming down the pike, we have our national conference that's scheduled in October 13th through the 16th, which is going to be in Newport Beach. And I believe both of you are going to be with us. So I'm very excited about that. In fact, maybe we can do a podcast show from the conference, which would be
that would be fun.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, totally. And so that conference is exciting for us because we track sort of year to date where we are in conferences. And normally by this time, right at the end of July, beginning of August, we've had about 90 or 95 people register. Just as of this morning, we had 250 people registered from 37 states. So that tells us that I think all these other projects, something's catching on fire. And certainly a lot of the folks are from California, but they're literally from everywhere, from Iowa, from Delaware, you name it. So I think that we're looking to the conference, which is always a big, exciting event ever since NACCE came to be more than a decade ago. I think this year at the conference is a little bit different because we're getting ready to announce in the middle of August about a cash pitch competition with a pretty sizable cash prize. So I'm not at liberty to tell you any more about that now, so I'll leave it as a teaser.
Okay, I was going to say, like, when this is launching.
Who is that and how do we sign up for that? But you'll find out. So that's exciting. We're also working right now to finalize an MOU with another very large corporation that is not in the tech space, does very different things than Verizon, but is really following our pilot, expand, scale model. So those, again, are opportunities for our members to receive awards and to participate. The other thing I wanted to mention is our work with the Maker Movement. We've been deeply involved in this the last couple of years, working with Sierra College in California and getting 24 maker spaces up and running. So we have signed a contract for Makeshift 2.0 that's going to be in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, June 3rd through the 5th of 2020. So we have partnered together with Make for All and a number of new partners that have come on board. And that's really all about supporting making. It's tied to STEM, but it's really opening up a community and saying, if you want to not only embrace community colleges and others, but if you want to, join forces with everyone in the community, provide a space where they can make things. And the very act of people making things together is really spurs on a lot of business creation. So that's something we're very excited about. As soon as we get done with the October conference, we'll shift our attention to that.
Yeah, I'm pretty pumped about all of them. I mean, I know I'm excited. I've never been to the West Coast, so it'll be my first time. And I'm just that for people who are listening in, if you are interested at all in entrepreneurship education, especially in the higher ed space, NACCE is a truly transformational conference. Like, I can't stress enough how much I learned from my first time last year in Fort Worth. And Toi, I think you've been two years now, maybe? No, just one?
Nope. That last year I went to a regional thing.
Oh, okay.
But yeah. That was bananas. Great conference. It was just, jam-packed. I couldn't figure out where to go next because I wanted to go to everything. And the keynotes were just unbelievable. It was just, and the food was fantastic, Becky. You did whoever you.
That's Amy. That's Amy Gouveia, our staff always makes sure. We always have this food bill, but it's well
worth it.
I wanted to mention too, especially because both of you are really leaders in many things, but also in the K-12 entrepreneurship space, that one of our keynote speakers at this October's NACCE conference is Ted Dintersmith. So I believe that Amber, you probably got a copy of his book from last year.
I think we both did, yeah.
Okay, I met him.
Okay,
I got to meet him, and I think I scared him to death because I was so excited and
so enthusiastic. Be a fan. Well, I read his book. Somebody that I know sent it to me and said, you have to read this book, and I did not put it down. Really, the approach that he took as a venture capitalist to go to all 50 states and find out what are pockets of innovation, what is working, was just very dynamic. So, he's just one of many, but there will also, again, be small group and fun dinners and experiences where people can get to know each other. I think part of the magic of NACCE, and again, before I joined NACCE as the president, I was a member too, as a guest, and I'll never forget my first conference that I went to in Phoenix. I think it was in 2014. I met so many people that were just sharing stuff. Really, it was just sort of this co-creation idea that we developed it. We're happy to share it with you as long as you share whatever you have with everybody else. And I really felt like that was a very special, unique culture. And I know that we've all talked about this at different times. I think the experience of an entrepreneur can be a lonely one because you're often very misunderstood. I've been working on that as I try to, sort of communicate in general to funders, to my board, to other people. And sometimes I think we, with this entrepreneurial mindset, can see the vision, but we can't really explain it always that well. And what I find is that when I'm around NACCE people like you and the other 2,000 people that we interact with, like we get each other, or even if I have no idea what you're talking about, if you're excited about it, I'm like, oh, okay, that sounds good. I'd like to come with you and learn more about that. And I think that's a very unique thing in terms of sort of a learning community of people that are truly empathetic to the journey. And I think that's part two why the magic works.
Yeah,
I love that.
That's so true. The very first NACCE thing I went to, I think I shared this with you, Becky, and it was a Pellissippi State.
Yeah.
And because I just drove by it the other day, I was like, oh, there's the college. But I was sitting in this room, I think it was the first thing, and this lady was speaking, and I looked around and it hit me like, these are my people. It was just, I'm not crazy. There are people that are like me that I had that feeling of everyone in here gets, in my life in general, especially in education, as an entrepreneur and educator, that doesn't make sense to a lot of people. And so, when you get around the NACCE community, when you get around, the group that we're around, it's just, you feel like, whoa, these people understand me, because in my regular life, I'm like Batman. Nobody gets what I do. It's
and Toi, you really are like Batman. You hunker down in your office and then you put on your cape. We all do. And we fly and we make, in essence, although it's funny, it's really true. I was thinking about that the other day when I woke up. It's a very unique gift to have work that you would do that you'd probably get up and do it anyway, even if they didn't pay you to do it, because you can't not do it. Because it makes you feel so fulfilled that you have this place and you're making a difference with people. And so my goal personally is never to lose that, because I think once we start losing that and we become too institutionalized, if you will, and that's always a challenge. And that's a challenge, I think, for all of us as EntreEd grows and Adventure grows and NACCE grows, is how do you keep that innovative spirit alive? And I think part of it is, continuing to maintain that community and that openness that anyone can join. And that's what I also like about NACCE is we have, in the hierarchical world of higher ed, you have chancellors and presidents and deans and so forth. But when we come together for that conference and for our convenings, while people may have earned lots of degrees, we come as a community. So it's, the student's voice in some ways is as important, if not more, than my voice. And I sort of delve into things like design thinking and things like that sort of empathy piece, and really sort of the flat structure of creating this crazy quilt, if you will, where we all are sort of joining hands together doing work, is pretty unique. It's very kind of contrary to how a lot of businesses in higher ed are set up. But at the same time, I think that's really what this fourth industrial revolution is preparing us for. And we need to prepare our students for that. You could be a 15-year-old kid who sets up a website and deems him or herself the president and CEO of the company, put together a fantastic marketing materials, probably not as good as the ones you do, Amber, because you amazing stuff. I've never seen anything that good, but,
it's really good.
Put yourself on that same level as somebody with an MBA who's, worked for 30 years. And I personally think that's very cool, because it's very empowering for women, people of color, people who are left behind. You can choose to be left behind, or you can join a community, as we've done more recently at NACCE, by embracing and just celebrating the 24 HBCUs that have joined our membership. I mean, it has just been phenomenal, this journey of equity and inclusion that we're on too, which is probably a whole other conversation that we could have. So
yeah, but this is a really good segue actually, because you talked about like the connected age and, the need for working in that manner and the need for being up to date on tech. So I do want to highlight the Verizon Innovative Learning and this was a perfect transition. I couldn't imagine a better one, honestly. So could you talk a little bit about that program, because it merges your work at the community college level with our work at the K-12 level. And so I'd really like for you to talk a little bit about what that program is and kind of how it's grown over the last couple of years, because we've been excited to watch it.
Yeah, I mean, that has been just a phenomenal opportunity. The Verizon Innovative Learning Initiative is something that Verizon started many years ago, and it's just had phenomenal impact around the country. Justina Nixon-Santil, who is the Director of Corporate Responsibility, was somebody that we had the opportunity to sit down with, and she was the one that kind of envisioned this pilot where we would allow and encourage rural girls, middle school girls, to come onto community college campuses and be exposed to STEM and entrepreneurship and design thinking and engineering careers. And so back in 2017, working with Justina and her staff, we piloted a program on 5 community college campuses, 2 of which are in the Appalachian region, which was super exciting because we had already been working together with you at EntreEd on those projects. And, Verizon is very careful about the investment and the impact that they make. So they hired SRI to do pre and post tests, and the results were just phenomenal. These girls just absorbed this kind of programming and mentoring. So long story short, Verizon has been very generous to us. And last year we were on 16 community college campuses, serving close to 1,500 community college girls. So it was phenomenal. I would say, oh my gosh, I can't imagine this getting any better, until Verizon came to us and said, we're thinking that the boys of color and the outreach to urban programs, that there's some advantages to all of that being sort of under one umbrella where you can provide project management and so forth. And we were just beyond excited about that. We had already dipped our toe into really making equity, inclusion, and diversity a priority, but we weren't quite sure how we were going to make it a big impact. So by kind of this opportunity to work more closely with Verizon on this project, it allowed us to work more substantially. So this summer, we're getting to the end of the summer, over 4,500 rural girls and boys of color have been served all over the country through this program. And it wasn't just a summer camp, but it'll continue with yearly engagements. We're right now building out a mentoring council as part of NACCE's Center of Practice around equity and inclusion. So we're sort of developing these relationships, which have opened up some really interesting doors. We were invited to dialogue on Capitol Hill, where we had a chance to meet some of the congressional leaders, the Honorable Alma Adams, who's, been a leader in HBCU caucus and so forth. So it's kind of like a dream scenario. And so we always really, truly value that relationship and see it growing. We try to connect to a lot of the work that we do with EntreEd and you guys, as you know, to try to make sure that the Appalachian region is cared for. There's other areas in the Delta region that are very much underserved. I had a conversation this morning with one of our staff members who's a director of innovation and equity for us, and just was telling me a little bit about the resources as they apply to HBCUs. And, some of those that are in the Delta region don't really have a lot of the resources that they need. So we start to ask ourselves, how might NACCE play this role of not only serving community colleges, but HBCUs? And what we see is when we bring them together and then connect it to K-12, I think what we're doing is sort of creating this habitat where there's networking and sharing, but you're kind of creating this super network of people that are truly caring not only about entrepreneurship, but student success and faculty engagement and community development. So it's exciting stuff, that's for sure.
That's incredible. That's a lot of kids. I didn't realize it. 4,500 students, and these are young. These are all our middle school students, right? Or is it?
They are, and it gets even better. So I almost feel like I'm making this up because this was so amazing. But I was talking to my staff members, so I know this was not a dream, but we had the opportunity to take a number of these boys of color and rural girls to New York City. Just a couple of weeks ago, we were in Manhattan Verizon Media hosted this phenomenal learning and sharing. So this cohort of 10 boys and girls came together with their parents and teachers and had this opportunity. Many of them had not been on an airplane before. They got to see the Build by Girls studio. Jordan Sparks, I'm sure Amber knows who she is.
I know.
Like, who's that? I had to ask my daughter. So it was very...
I have kids.
Yeah, there you go. You too. But it was just like the opportunity kind of a lifetime. So the Tennessee State University sent 10 of their boys and teachers and parents. And we had Patrick Henry Community College and Roane State, which are two of our ARC Appalachian partners, again, networking. And it was just phenomenal. I had the opportunity to spend hours on the bus with the parents while the kids were engaged in programming and just to hear about their hopes and dreams. And one of the things that they were sharing was, some of them had always aspired to do things that they never quite got to do, and that their child is going through this program and they're starting to see the child's mind opening up. And then they're starting to see, well, what might I do? Like one of the dads, a single dad, came on the trip and said, he had this idea for this business that he wanted to start. And so he started talking with some people at Verizon about it. And then he reached out to me. And long story short, he's going to be meeting with the president of Patrick Henry, who's very entrepreneurial herself, who's going to give him some guidance. So, granted, that's a very expensive kind of opportunity, but, the outcome to that and the stories and the impact. And when you see communities that are not very diverse, quite frankly, in the Appalachian region and also in urban areas, the kids coming together when they started and we met in the hotel lobby in the morning, as kids do, regardless of where they come from, they're all kind of huddled in their own little group. And by the end, I saw we were doing a maker activity where they were creating this stamp that they had to design on a CAD drawing and then produce. And I saw a couple of them helping each other. And then I saw one little boy give a girl who lives in rural Tennessee his cap, his orange cap. And she put it on and she said, "Mom, take a picture of this. I want to go home and show everybody this." And I thought, that is really where equity, inclusion, understanding, diversity comes. And I really applaud Verizon for seeing that and investing in it. We just got today this package of thank you letters from the kids. And the person that works in my office called me and she's in tears. She's like, "I've never seen anything like this." Kids' little drawings of how I could never have afforded to go to New York City. And this is what I learned. And like stick figures of people like hugging each other. And again, I think with the work that we are doing together with Adventure and EntreEd and groups like Verizon and others that are coming online, like the sky's the limit. There's a lot of depressing things, quite frankly, that are happening in the world. And I feel a responsibility as a leader, as a woman, as a mother, that I need to do what I can to really invest in the future. And I think the work that we're doing together really does that. And my only hope through the book, through our organizations, through our friendships and all of that is that we can do more of it. Because, it's like going to Disneyland, some of these experiences. Now, not every day is Disneyland, as we all know, but I think very few people have that opportunity. And I think we want to have more people really be kind of lit on fire with the passion for positive social change and economic mobility.
This makes me want to cry.
I did cry a little.
I'm like a little emotional, and then I was getting goosebumps, and I was like, "Okay, Amber, you need to rein it in, kiddo. Like you need to
don't rein it in, Amber."
But no,
Amber, like you're the host of the show. But if I could take over for a second, as an entrepreneur would, I was so impressed the first time I met you. You're was 23, 24 years old, and just so on fire and passionate. And Toi, you too, like you're a young mom as well. And just you guys are out there like creating stuff that didn't exist before. You're not just going online and finding like template for this or that or the other thing. What you're doing is saying, okay, like kids are not getting engaged. They're not getting excited about learning math and coding. How can we make this different? How can we get the teachers excited, which is what you do at your phenomenal conference that I hope that you will plug in September in Lexington, Kentucky. I was truly amazed by that too, is getting teachers to pitch for things. teachers are not trained exactly to pitch for things, and you guys have done that. So I really applaud the work that you're doing together. I think about when I talk to my business coach, he tells me, imagine life 5 years from now. And it kind of makes my head spin, to be honest with you. So I've started with 2020. But I think if we have this conversation at the end of 2020, we were talking a little bit about the growth of the NACCE budget and the growth of the Verizon Innovative Learning Kids. I mean, you don't know. Like, we could look at numbers like you've never seen before. And if you look at 4,500, 6,000, 10,000 kids, that's one child in a family that might have 5 or 6 kids and parents. And you start to exponentially kind of chart that out in terms of the impact in communities. When you have communities that are fearful, one little thing I'll share with you, which is really, I think, speaks to the courage of the entrepreneur, is when I was on the bus with those parents, you know, some of the parents were telling me, like, very candidly, that in their community, they got some pushback for taking their kid to New York City. Well, it was the trip of a lifetime. They said, well, you know, in our community, all we hear is that people get robbed and shot, and, you know, there's scary people that we don't know. They're not from our community. They're different than us. And, you know, one of the things is when they go back and really reflect on this experience, and now they've formed friendships. They've had dinner with these people. They've shared hopes and dreams. Like, exponentially, while some of these investments are, you know, can be a little expensive, I think that the outcome of it is just phenomenal. We don't even know what that will be yet.
Well, let's put that down. Let's plan to have a conversation.
Yes.
At the end of 2020. Maybe
I was like, okay,
some in between that time, but let's definitely.
Can we like put it on the calendar?
This has been amazing. We have so many great guests on here, and we're always like, this is perfect because we are now set up for all of the like episodes for the next, because we're going to just keep bringing people back, and you are included. We're going to bring you back 3 or 4 times now because there's so much going on and so much to share. So we really appreciate it. And I know I just glanced down and we're getting a little bit long on time, and we try to keep it shorter-ish for our viewers, because it's like a commuting time frame for them. So we're gonna close, but before we do, would you share any parting advice that you have for community college leadership or faculty for embracing entrepreneurship? Any big takeaways that you'd like some of our listeners to have?
Yeah, I think, you know, sometimes the big takeaway is, if you want to change your mindset or start something new, you know, try to develop a new habit about it. So, you know, some people are not going to like dive into the pool. I'm not one of those people either, although I probably sound like I am on this interview. Like everyone, I sort of wrestle with huge risks. And I think some ways, and sometimes the way to become more entrepreneurial is to really sort of reflect on it. Like, how can you change the way that you think about things instead of always going to the problem or the what if this happened, to really think about more dwelling in the solution and what small steps can I take? Because I think if we develop habits, like I described myself at the beginning as an accidental entrepreneur, I think I would more, as of, you know, August 2nd, 2019, I think I'd more describe myself today as a habitual entrepreneur. There are some days where I'm just like everybody else. I'm trying to keep it all together. But in general, I try to read something that inspires me. I try to reach out and help someone. When people reach out to me and they say, I need a letter, I need this, we're all busy. But if I can have 5 minutes and help another person, that helps me be entrepreneurial, because I feel like I'm helping somebody else on my way. So that would be just something that I would think about in terms of how you can sometimes get to a much bigger place. You get there with small steps. You're not, sometimes it's not a leap until you look in hindsight, as we talked about the Verizon program, and I see all the magnificent things that they have done before NACCE was even involved in the picture, and I see where they're headed now. I wouldn't have been able to even conceptualize that a couple of years ago, but had I not taken those little steps, we wouldn't be here. So, you know, I just encourage people, and when it doesn't work out and you stumble and fall, find good friends like the two of you, that when I have done things and they haven't worked out and I've messed up or I've missed a deadline, you know, you help get me on track. And I think you need people like that in your life that are not going to sort of laugh at your stumbles, but pick you back up and celebrate your successes. So surround yourself with people like that.
That's such great advice. And it's true. You know, with entrepreneurship, sometimes your goals are big and you feel like, oh my gosh, this is so overwhelming, but that's such a great way to look at it. It's like, here's the goal. How do I just move one step in that direction? And then just keep taking those, you know, step after step after step. So that's awesome advice.
Yep. Toi, that's your like one little thing. We do that every time we go into a teacher training.
Just one thing.
One thing first. One little thing. I love that. Becky, how can people connect with you? I know you're pretty active on Twitter. If somebody's interested in learning more, how can they connect with you? What would be the best way to reach you?
Yeah, I mean, I try to, that's like the one little thing that I do every day too. I mean, I'm a late arrival to Twitter. I've only been on Twitter for 4 years, which I know a lot of you have been on it longer. But you can connect with me on Twitter at Rebecca Corbin 7. I usually, you know, that's how I make myself kind of connected to my community. I try to tweet out a couple things every day or respond to things. I get a lot of tweets from the Verizon kids and parents, which I love. So that just bolsters me up. The other thing is you can always feel free to reach out to our website, NACCE.com. Very easy to access. You know, we're a nonprofit, we're a membership organization, but we pride ourselves in helping everyone. So, you know, don't let it be a barrier if you're not a member. You know, you will be someday, or, you know, we're happy to help you however we can. So I think those would probably be the easiest ways to, you know, to get in touch and stay in touch.
Thank you. Yeah. And also one other one is to go to the NACCE conference and then find all of us in person. Final plug of the evening. But I mean, this has been so inspiring. I know just personally, and we talk all the time. We work together often. So I can't imagine how inspiring it will be for people who don't know your story as well to hear the growth. So we're really thankful for you.
Well, I'm thankful for you, and I'm thankful for everyone who's listening, because if you're take the time to tune in, you care about these things, and just know that, you know, sometimes it's a lonely journey, but, you know, there are people like us that are out there working every day for you with really a serving heart and just a hopeful, optimistic spirit. You know, whatever you're thinking about doing, you know, don't let the day go by and not do that one little thing.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Becky.
Oh, thanks, you guys. Oops.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Great day. You guys have a great day.